Twitch has been a phenomenal platform, and the efficiencies of what we've been able to do of almost near real time. 1 second, Ryan, is that acceptable? No, not when it comes to sports and esports and different betting and things like that. Why haven't we moved further?
This is going to be a little bit controversial, but I think anyone who's really been in streaming for more than a couple of years is going to agree with me, is that everything in streaming is a hack. And even my own startup that I was involved with, we hacked WebRTC to make it as a service for linear streaming, for linear real-time streaming. So, WebRTC was never built for that. It was built as a real-time communication platform to kind of build Google Meet, right? And Google Hangouts, so it used to be Google Hangouts. And then we took it and like, oh, this is available to every browser. It's available on devices. You can do it from contribution and distribution. And we created a service, and we were the first to do that. And that's true of pretty much anything that's out there. So to your point, Allan, when Flash RTMP went away, when the Flash player went away and RTMP went away as a distribution platform, all the CDNs, and I apologize to all my CDN friends out there, Akamai and Fastly and CloudFront and everywhere, is they all got very lazy. They all got rid of their stateful architecture. They all used to run Origin Edge CDNs that ran RTMP servers, and they would do an Origin ingest. They would pass it to an edge, and the edge would statefully connect to the Flash clients that would be the players, and that was an RTMP Origin Edge. And that's what we're doing with WebRTC. And it's very, very hard to do. And more importantly, it's very expensive because you're having to spin up actual servers to create those stateful connections that map it. The benefit to all of that is that you get you get the benefit of two-way data channels. You get the benefit of there being interactivity in the streams that you're doing. You get a benefit to a range of a whole other things, both in the days of RTMP and in the days of WebRTC now, where you can now create, watch party type use cases or, breakout rooms or other forms of interactivity that we haven't even come up with yet that I think are going to be very interesting as we try to figure out new ways to generate revenue and do direct to consumer applications. To your point of why hasn't the HTTP streaming industry done anything? Because the CDNs all decided, okay, we're going to go and do what's the cheapest thing that we can do. We have this amazing HTTP architecture that scales all of our other websites and everything else. And HLS was a brilliant protocol for making the iPhone ubiquitous, for making streaming ubiquitous. So I'm not getting piling on HLS, because it was such an amazing hack of how can we use HTTP and HTTP CDNs to scale streaming and make it accessible to global massive audiences. And to this day, there's nothing in the WebRTC space or in the RTMP space or in any space that can get to the levels of scalability that HLS has enabled us to get to. Truly amazing scalability. But as it relates to use cases, going back to Evan's point, if you have a use case that requires pretty much anything under 5 or 10 seconds, it's really, 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 really hard to get to massive scale on HTTP and to extremely low not massive scale, extremely low latency on HTTP, because of the way that HTTP CDNs are distributed. You've got to cache out through all these different layers of edge architectures to get packets all the way down. It's really, really hard, despite the encoding technologies being there with CMAF and HLS and LL-. It's really, really, really hard to proliferate those packets across these architectures to deliver those in time that don't have this inherent latency. That's kind of the simple answer to why HTTP is struggling to deliver on the promise of real time.
Talking about the evolution of some of these technologies, I mean, smooth streaming was kind of de facto standard across a lot of things, including CDN providers back in the day, and the eventual demise of Silverlight and stuff caused certain things there. But now we have MPEG-Dash, which is, was supposed to be kind of this more universal format. It was very difficult to get HLS to run on anything other than an Apple product back in the day. You had to hack the client in order for it to decode those frames. So I think we've kind of lost our way a little bit in terms of just piling on HLS because, hey, it just works, right? But then we also talk to our CDN providers. They're not willing to do anything because everybody wants to be on HLS. So they have no incentive to change up their architecture to move anywhere in the future. So what would be the problem? Because all of this stuff is really just compute at the edge. Why not somebody build a product that actually would just be de facto on the edge, say if you wanted to do a large scale Zixi deployment and do client to client Zixi pushes, that solves your security and OFSEC problems as well, because now you can encrypt the traffic back and forth. Not that you can't encrypt HLS, but there's these IPTV services out there that basically lift content every single day, and none of the media rights holders have any access or any way of shutting down that type of hijacking, I guess, of the stream. So sure, we will look at CMAF, we look at things that are more interop, and we've been looking for interop in terms of all device ecosystems are created equal. There should be one format or standard to stream to these devices, that we don't have to have like client interrogation. Oh, you're such and such client, so you need to have this just in time encode to support that device. And so I think that us as an industry can and has power to kind of influence how that stuff is being delivered to the clients in a more cost effective and more of a higher efficiency way than just saying, oh, well, we'll just move to WebRTC because it's fast and has low latency. I mean, to switch up infrastructure like that is not something that can be done overnight, but at the same time, we can't just keep hopping from different, format to format to format, trying to find that we need to come up with more of a Swiss Army knife type of solution.
I like Corey's idea, by the way, of just having generic compute at edge, and then you can put what you want on it. If you want to put WebRTC, great. If you want to swap it out later, great. I think when you invest in infrastructure like that, like what Ryan was getting at, that something has to terminate the connection. Today, it's a bunch of caches throughout a network like CloudFront, or it's a bunch of, iron that Dolby put out there for their WebRTC CDN. But there's a bunch of computers out there doing something, and right now they're all pretty differentiated in what they do, which is part of why Ryan can charge more per gigabyte, because it's like, yeah, it might be the same physical box. It's probably not, but here's something where we can give you a differentiated gigabyte. And why is this more valuable? It's because I got it to you faster. There's something to that. And I was thinking something similarly while Corey was speaking earlier about the clipping, sort of live highlight clipping for people. I think the lower the latency you can get for live events, the more monetization opportunities you have, and all the way up to like real-time betting, right? If you're like getting that fast, like under a second, there's some stuff you can do under a second. There's some stuff you can do, if it's within a few seconds. There's some stuff you can do if it's within a minute, and then the value of the content sort of deteriorates. For I'm talking just for live, specifically live sports and news. The further you get from the live head, the less value that content has almost immediately. It's like when you buy a new car, then you drive it off the lot. So you need to have all this technology and all these options to be able to give as much experience to different users who want different experiences as you can, so that the rights holders can have more monetization channels.